Seve. Big news this week. Ilya Sutskever from OpenAI has left and raised $1 billion between him and I think 4 co-founders. Currently, no tech, no product, nothing specific.
Huge. It's got to be it's got to be the largest valuation ever given to just a group of people with nothing else, just a napkin.
Largest pre-seed valuation I could possibly think of. It's incredible. It really is.
Sam Altman kept saying this is the era where we have $1 billion company that's run by just one person.
Yeah.
And they basically, we don't know what the parameters exactly. I don't think whether it was 20% or 40% that they gave away or whatever, but they have nearly approached that with somewhere around $1 billion per person.
Yeah.
It's 3 co-founders, I think, right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It's even fewer than I thought. Wow.
Yeah.
I really didn't get deep into this news. That's really incredible. I believe, it was very headliney what I read, but $1 billion and their objective is to basically straight line it, go as hard and as quick as possible towards artificial superintelligence. Like ignore deploying ChatGPT like products in the meantime. Ignore the neat demos or the monetization in the short term. Speed run the superintelligence.
Just get back to where they were. I wonder if there is for software companies, we see some benefit of small teams. I wonder if they can apply that same philosophy. They're like, man, we're always waiting on the cluster on these experiments, or we're spending so much time building interfaces. We had entire teams with interfaces, and then we were tweaking the models to help people with coding. That's not super intelligence.
Yeah.
So maybe just that laser focus allows that small team to move even faster than OpenAI.
That's crazy, isn't it, to think?
I think it's probably easier to raise that money when it's going to be spent on capital too.
That's true.
In this case, I don't know what percentage of that is going to be spent on just GPUs. But
yeah, who's just bought NVIDIA stock? There's $1 billion going right to them.
Yeah, and everybody's buying it too. Even Tesla is buying NVIDIA stuff, I think, even though I think Tesla also has their own silicon. Is that right?
Yeah, they developed... For inference, for inference, actually, I don't think NVIDIA has hyper-specialized hardware in the same way they have the H100s, for example. Or at least it's not to that same level of you couldn't do this otherwise.
Yeah.
So all of the autopilot computers in the cars are custom silicon, and there was a project for years called Dojo that was going to do a whole wafer training stack and use all the power electronics that Tesla has expertise in and blah, blah, blah. But now obviously it was an enormous purchase. I can't remember how many GPUs by Tesla to start their own training center using NVIDIA equipment. It does somewhat indicate at least, and I'm no particular insight beyond the headlines here, that they might be taking a pivot away from that custom silicon and refocusing on the training side of things.
It might be kind of what we discussed last episode, or maybe a future episode, depending on how we release it. But it kind of goes into this idea that it's not completely a unified vision, right? When you're in a bigger company and you have a lot of funds, you can kind of take a more conservative approach and try out different angles, have departments compete, et cetera. So maybe they're not betting it all on their custom silicon anymore.
It's very true. It's possible. Tesla is not typically one of those companies, but we'll see. They're very more burn the bridges in my view of it. But
maybe Jetson is the CEO, right? Am I getting his name right? What's the CEO of NVIDIA? What's his name?
Oh, Jensen Huang.
Yeah. Maybe he's just a really good guy. He seems to be a really good guy. So maybe he's just talking to Elon. He's like, you guys could do that, but let's just work together, Maybe it's just cool.
It's yeah. Everything that I've seen from him, he's in that leather jacket. He's super cool. He's a chiller.
Yeah. He also has that kind of 40 report, kind of intense CEO, founder mode mentality. So
yeah, definitely. I remember seeing a bit from him recently saying, or the reporter asked him if he knew how hard it was to start NVIDIA, would he do it again? And he said, absolutely not.
Really?
Yeah, are you kidding me? You can't know. God, it was so hard. Why would I want to do that?
Oh my gosh.
So many other things. But, you can kind of continuously trick yourself into thinking it'll be easy, and that's an imperative.
Do you know what part for him he felt was like so hard that like he would never want to do it again. I'm sure like it's got to be like one
He's pivoted
point.
the company multiple times.
Oh, really?
Right? Like, think about it. So they started off, and in the early days, they were competing very heavily, and they came up with a generic graphics processor and coined the term GPU. And that was a novelty at the time. That was hard. That was hard to do. And then they stayed in the graphics side, the gaming and the users for a long time, and then all of a sudden realized that these are actually generic processing units for matrix operations. How about we add a CUDA tool set? And that was like that was a non-trivial pivot for them.
Yeah.
And it really pushed them towards scientific computing. And then when it became evident that AI was going to function through those types of matrix operations, largely speaking, and that GPUs could accelerate that, look, their graphics side is still very good, but they just don't really care anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's a couple of hard pivots.
In CUDA, they started that a long time ago. The first time I heard the word CUDA must have been over 10 years ago, I would think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, and we finally just got Linux support.
Oh, really?
I mean, like, it was a couple of years ago now, but it's all relative. You know?
Sounds right. Yeah. I actually just bricked a computer with an NVIDIA GPU with Linux just the other day.
Why'd you do that?
I don't know. I just installed the driver, and then it didn't boot up the graphics card anymore. So
oh, lovely.
that's fine.
That's a tough one. But with discussion of all this cost, it made me think. I heard a rumor the other day as well. I heard a rumor that said the access to the next model for ChatGPT is going to cost $2,000 a month.
Wow.
Now, this is an unsubstantive rumor. I will not stand behind it in any way, shape, or form. But it made me think, right? And again, with Ilya raising $1 billion,
right?
Like a team of 3, insane. So, what would you pay for access to? Let's just say today, it was an all-in-one encompassing package for all of the LLMs or none of them. What would you pay?
Yeah. Oh, for all of the LLMs, what would I pay today? Well, and I don't have access otherwise?
It's all or nothing. Like, just assume it's the access to the technology or not, and let's just presume the technology is access to the package of every supplier today.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it would be like for tscircuit in particular, we do use AI. We literally have a bot that we tag an issue, and the bot will try to do the PR with AI.
Oh, wow.
And it's sometimes very successful. Most of the time fails, but it always is a little bit helpful for new contributors and stuff like that. So it's lubricating everything.
Yeah.
And so it would be somewhere in the $2,000 to $10,000 range. It would be like people
monthly.
Who are going away. Yeah, monthly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wow.
Because it's really like one thing I like about that AI is it's super reliable. Like, I know it's going to be...
Okay, gonna have to substant that one.
Okay, I know it's going to be super reliably a very, very junior engineer.
Yep.
And the PRs are even similar when I have a contributor who is totally new to kind of software engineering. Yeah. The PRs even look a little bit similar sometimes.
Yeah, well, maybe it's because they got the thing from
maybe. But like that's kind of how I equate it, and there are so many little issues that are just not worth my time that I'm able to do, including the bot that writes it. I would never write an AI bot to do issues, but it was so easy. For the bot, we wrote the bot, but we use Sonnet underneath.
Interesting.
And a bot is really easy to write if you use Aider, which is kind of an LLM code editing orchestration system.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because there's a few companies that do, just exactly this, like know your workspace and edit it, or at least review the PRs in some way.
Right. There's a lot of people talking about it, and they're all benchmarking, but I just haven't seen it. Like, for all of these companies,
your home rolled.
Yeah, it's like literally easier, but. For me, but like for all these companies, GitHub is a system where humans interact with code, they interact with each other. Just fit your AI into that existing system, and you've got an entire market for the taking. I don't want to go into your GUI and like change all of those workflows that I know work really well for code. Just in my mind, there's no reason to. If I leave requests for changes on code review that a bot created, the bot will try to correct those things. Yeah. That workflow is probably like 80 lines of YAML. It's not a hard workflow. So for all these people, just interoperate with GitHub and like you're going to be fine. Stop building UIs or whatever you're doing. This crazy stuff.
The ones that I thought of, they're now a batch of YC Greptile. Shout out to Greptile. Yeah. Have you come across that?
I've heard of Greptile. I think they do really. I'm gonna completely botch this, but they did really good code base analysis, which is really important.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pre-processing. I could talk. Yeah, like I write docs specifically for AI. And
wow, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, actually, anytime you see a tscircuit repo, we have like 100 repos. And it has a docs directory. I didn't write that for humans, even though it looks like it's written for humans and it will help you. And it's a great getting started guide. It's not for you. It's for the bot so that the bot reads that and then it doesn't make a test in a way that's unconventional or something like that. So I always put that into a repo that has a lot of heavy AI usage.
That's incredible. That's such a smart thing to do. I'm going to copy that.
Yeah. And Greptile and stuff like that, I think what when I saw them, what they did is they would kind of create some of those documents for you.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Wow. Okay, so they've got all the hot tips here.
Actually, Greptile might have a full code agent editing system now. I feel like Greptile, I'm so sorry.
Well, okay, I'll have to give him a crack because I'm probably not going to roll my own bot. Wow. So this is incredible. Okay, so getting back to the value, you said $2,000 to $10,000.
Yeah, $2,000 to $10,000.
But you're talking about, okay, maybe break it down. So there's an API here, access that component you're talking about, and there's a chatbot component.
Yeah.
So the API sounds like your primary use case. Then this is this is how you interface mostly.
Right. Yeah, I'm mostly API. The chatbot would be worth a lot less, probably. It would depend on the month. I would probably turn it on, turn it off.
Wow.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm doing a lot of algorithms and I actually do want to talk to the bot. I want to be like, hey, let's try, I like to describe really abstract algorithms and see what it comes up with, because a lot of times it'll pull in something relevant that I've never heard of.
Something that it's found from someone else's code.
Exactly. It's read all the white papers, so it knows about it. So for those months, I really want a chatbot, but otherwise, just API usage. And
incredible.
I'm curious, if I reflect this back, what do you think you would pay for?
Well, okay.
And this is all or nothing.
All or nothing. Yeah, because you can't half-ass it, And so I was thinking of it primarily in terms of the chatbots, because that's what I had literally in front of me when I heard this rumor.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, okay, $100 no brainer, trivial monthly cost. 200, yeah, I would feel gouged compared to today, but obviously you'd still pay it. Getting serious, $1,000, realistically, I think I probably, as a business expense, of course, I couldn't afford that personally,
right?
But I think that would probably make sense as an access to this, as a key to this technology.
Yeah.
As just the chatbot. And then you add in, so Cursor also had a $60 million round.
That's right.
Very recently.
Do you use Cursor as well?
I've just restarted. I tried them very early on.
I just restarted as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay, cool. Yeah, I tried them very early on and I was like, wow, I see the vision. It's kind of, it's fine.
Yep.
But then there was so much noise and execution in the space that I was like, I'm not trying every single new IDE assistant, this and that comes, because I just can't. I've got stuff to do.
Yeah.
But then Narayan, my co-founder, who continued using Cursor, was like, Matt, it's got better.
You got to get in.
What
on
are you
this.
doing?
Yeah.
You look like an idiot. You look like an ape. I am, really. Just typing away one key at a time. And so I got back on it, and oh my God, it has improved. And it's really good. It's so fast. And it the fact that it'll diff code for me and hey, do you want to apply this solution? You can chat about it with context. It's good.
That's really the big thing, is just if you have a small, for me in TypeScript, I have type errors constantly. So I just say, hey, fix this with AI, and it'll usually fix that. So
incredible.
So I think how I compute the amount that I'm willing to pay is basically what % does it make my team faster, and then you just multiply that by the total cost of the team, the labor cost of the team. Yep. And so right now, we probably spent, actually I probably shouldn't say how much we spent, but not tons, but still enough where a 20% boost would be in that $1,000, $2,000 category.
It's really indicative that it's currently a buyer's market for all of these AI technologies, which is really quite interesting. They're already so commoditized in a way that you're taking something that we're discussing here, you could potentially sell for thousands of dollars a month to, thousands of dollars a month per seat. This is an insane quantity of money. but they're giving it to us for $20. Like, what is going on there? And the answer is that it's competitive, right? And that's really cool.
Well, I think part of it is it's competitive, but also the highest cost people are willing to pay. Like, I think I'm probably falling into the power user that might not always be the long-term way to make the most money, right? And ChatGPT, their almost whole premise was like, oh, this should be available to everyone. That also put them on the good side of regulation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If it was really expensive, people would be way more anti. They'd be like, I don't know how that thing works, but
they can't have the peasants using it.
Yeah. So I think all of those things kind of add together, but that's not the world we're going to be in when they release this $2,000 a month thing, if they do.
Yeah.
By the way, this could be a leak to just generate conversation so that they can probe.
Well, we're talking about it.
Because I want to say it was actually OpenAI might have done this in the past where they probed a price.
Yeah.
And then they just came in at about half or something like that. So it's kind of a good technique. But they have to release a model that's significantly better for people to pay that amount.
Yeah. It would, yes.
So it's almost exciting to hear that price tag because I'm thinking if they sell it at that amount and it is better enough to justify that amount, then holy moly, I'm going to have a good model. I cannot wait.
Yeah. See, how far behind do you think everyone else will be with an equivalently good model? Because I couldn't imagine it being more than 3-6 months.
Yeah, no, it could be a while. And we haven't had an OpenAI release in a really long time.
Not a real one.
Yeah.
So it's either ChatGPT 5 or maybe Q-Star. Maybe that's what they're going to name 5. This is like some, I guess it's no longer a GPT, but they might keep the name because everyone's familiar with it.
Yeah, they might.
This type of, like that type of order of magnitude shift that we saw between like 3 on release and 4 now over the course of the last year, we should reasonably anticipate happening again in the not too distant future. And I do remember hearing Sam Altman say that, well, yes, 3 was incredible because it was the culmination of years of release. And then 4 was, again, like a huge backlog that the public had not seen immediately released.
Right.
And now it's the rat race. Everyone's releasing constantly.
Yeah.
And so we're actually seeing like fairly bleeding edge stuff. Not quite the best that they have, but there's, the activities in the background aren't going to be as mind-boggling next time unless there's something architecturally new.
Yeah, totally. Makes sense. And yeah, it's even, they almost like rolled back with GPT 4.0 a little bit where, that's like their dominant model now, but it's actually like a little bit worse. So like, there's like some weird stuff going on, but I do think just having a constant rate of acceleration is a better place. The killer feature for us, I think, would be if it does get some level of spatial awareness so that it can do, like, I'm just waiting for the engineering diagrams to work. I know we've talked about this. We talked about this at the beginning of the podcast. But this could be huge if we're able to look at the data sheets, get a schematic, turn it into atopile. I've been saying atopile wrong for everyone who watches these, which really speaks to how nice Matt is, atopile. But then turn it into atopile or tscircuit, and then suddenly there's this huge like registry or whatever.
It's incredible.
Available. That would be incredible.
Yeah, it is mind-boggling how good they are already at this task. I put out the other day. I posted some incredibly preliminary figures on exactly this. The answer is it's pretty good already.
Nice.
Like it's wild, but the value proposition is insane. I guess the one thing on the competition front actually that would change this is if the cost of inference was so high that they were making only a reasonable profit, no one was particularly willing to undercut them, such that whatever Llama and Gemini and it was a Qwen 2 LV.
I heard a lot about that model. Yeah.
This is incredible. Everyone was like, "Oh, the Chinese are 10 years behind." Doesn't really look like it now, does it?
Looks pretty good. Yeah, I think it's very good at video and image generation, I want to say, which is great for spatial awareness. Although for every data set I want to work on, which is not a photo, it's a diagram. Still a little bit to be desired, but I think a lot of those could be fine-tuned to work on it. Just nobody has taken up the mantle yet.
Yeah. So if you had this litany of them, and it would be a very interesting social dynamic because, everyone's been willing to lower the price for general accessibility and therefore run it for free. If it were the case now that they were able to make something that was like seriously comparable to a high-end engineer and doctor and physicist and specialist and lawyer and in every way, right? This is what the next generation of models, like we're really staring down, because I'd say that currently I look at ChatGPT like 4.0, and most of these models is like a 30th to 50th percentile, relatively junior, as you say.
Yep.
But simultaneously in every domain, which
Yep.
is incredible,
Yep.
right? And which you do not get out of a human. But the next model, if it goes from that like 30 to 50th percentile to like 30th to 50th percentile junior to, for argument's sake, it was an 80th percentile senior engineer
Right.
and doctor and physicist and
Right.
et cetera and lawyer, right? Then all of a sudden you're really questioning hiring people quite seriously.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I don't know how many people are throwing money at it, but maybe this $2,000 a month price tag is behind this kind of, like, it's not actually a model increase, or not necessarily a model increase, but they've kind of just thrown money behind it. For example, like if I have multiple code review. So right now, every time our bot runs to generate a pull request, we give it a ton of context. We actually fill up the context window. We give it so much. And as a result, it costs 10 to 30 cents every time it's run.
Incredible.
It's very expensive. But it's worth it if you even get a good result 10% of the time. Now, if it did 5 code reviews and then another bot reviewed all of them, I might spend $10 per pull request.
Yep.
But do I increase that from 10 to 30% of the time I've got something good?
How much does your engineer cost you?
Yeah, exactly.
Per pull request. Have you ever done the maths? I'm curious.
I haven't, but we actually have really good data on that. We measure super tightly. Actually,
On how long your engineers are looking at your pull requests.
we measure how many pull requests each engineer does, and we have an AI analyze the impact of the contribution.
Wow.
And the reason for this is, one, I love the data. I think there's too much data for us to kind of like put into graphs. You have to use an AI to kind of process it and turn it into dimensions that we understand. And it's also fun to have a leaderboard with the community.
That's cool.
But I want to sponsor people for working on tscircuit, and I don't want to have to manage these little GitHub sponsorships, because
absolutely.
it's not going to be, to be clear, it's not going to be worth anybody's time unless it moves into a hire to work on tscircuit for a sponsorship. It's like a lot of time to get behind things, but it is nice to buy somebody a coffee or a couple coffees or
it's appreciated.
whatever. So if I do an AI evaluation of this, it's very easy to manage that kind of system.
Yep.
So that's kind of the goal.
That's incredible stuff. I've actually never heard of an AI system with that much real-time telemetry on the people in an organization. I've like heard rumors that they exist and that people are doing this analysis, but in that kind of level of detail, it's really incredible. Do you learn much from it? Actually, like tangibly, or is
Absolutely.
it an interesting thing? Okay.
Yeah, so I got to plug former employee here. I'm like, working on homie.gg.
Okay.
But I was using a ton of AI at Seam to determine like milestone alignment, stuff like that. So I would look at all the contributions people were making and see what milestones they contributed to. And a lot of times that helps you figure out, one of my favorite things to figure out was the maintenance cost of your business. How much time are people doing like refactors, fixing bugs that are like performance related, whatever. And then you see 60% of all contributions, and you can kind of extrapolate that to time if you know the impact of the PR and stuff like that.
Yeah.
60% of the time is on maintenance. So all of a sudden, you have a really good perspective on the number of hours.
Yep.
And when you do milestone planning, you can say, okay, well, this is how much time this is realistically what we can get done, right? You have so much more data for that. So I love it. But if you want a similar thing, homie.gg, he took the system I was building and he made it into a company.
I will definitely be checking that out. Thank you very much. Wow, that's incredible. So yeah, wow. Interesting. Wow. So sorry, it's just I have to absorb this all for a minute.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I think people are they have a lot of dystopian thoughts when they're like, oh, an AI is watching what I do and stuff like that. But my philosophy is a little bit different. I think people actually kind of love to be watched and recognized and kind of like shown that what they're doing actually has impact and where that impact has, how they contributed to the larger objective.
Yep.
So I believe that that kind of observation creates alignment in an organization. There is a dystopian version of it.
Yes, there always is.
Yeah, and really the dystopian version comes when you can't explain clearly why you're measuring something. But I think I've always been able to say, okay, well, we want to work on this thing, but there's this temptation to work on this other thing. So we're going to look at the delta between these things. And in every company, there's a project people want to work on, and then there's what you actually should be working on. Yeah. And they're constantly in conflict.
In every job,
Yeah,
absolutely. No, that definitely makes sense. That's really interesting. So, okay, so if you were to take that, it's like roughly risk weighted. It's like $1 per useful work.
Right.
Right. Because he said it was roughly 1 in 10 it did something useful today. And you were to increase that, let's say it were true and that we're going from costing $20 a month to $2,000 a month because it's a pure cost of inference thing.
Yeah.
Would you 100x the cost of your PR review from $1 or like the useful PR reviews from $1 to $100 in your system today?
Yeah, I think I would for the predictability and also just the time. Just you could move faster as a company.
Oh, I mean, you could be just like writing
How much does that
30, 40 PRs an hour.
Right. Right.
It would be insane.
I want a consistent function from the money I have in the bank to progress, technical progress.
What's the transfer function of that?
Exactly. I kind of threw that out of spin because we did a rewrite and that throws everything out of spin. You're like, wait a second, this is a regression.
Yes.
You guys are doing a bit of a rewrite as well.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh my God. Don't rewrite your stuff unless you need to. We did need to, and I presume you made that judgment call appropriately as well.
Yeah,
or
nobody could contribute. I realized nobody could contribute to the core of tscircuit because I had built it in my free time over 3 years, and it was like, no, it's junk code.
Yeah. Ours was a similar problem, except we also couldn't even contribute. And so in seriousness, it was getting to the point where if you build something in 3 months and it works, it's great, but also, if you then get there and you just like add this one more piece of duct tape, and the whole thing falls apart. Like it's untenable. It makes the problem intractable, and it also just sucks. Like, fuck, I don't want to do that in my work.
Absolutely, yeah. It feels good to be working on a good code base. I was at the part where, like, if I had like 50 plus traces, it started freezing and crashing.
Okay, not that many in the scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. Like basically nothing. I was like, all right, this is where it ends. Like there's you can build a lot of boards with less than 50 traces that will, look like you can build boards, but you can't build
You can't build anything
boards.
like actually useful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can get away with it for a little while, but it's time to sturdy up.
That absolutely totally makes sense. So if $2,000 for the next model were not the cap, you said up to 10.
Yeah, up to 10, absolutely.
Is that aggregate for all of tscircuit, or is that kind of per seat per employee?
Oh, definitely aggregate for sure. Yeah. 2,000 easily. Yeah, I mean, $1 per PR, 10 times, 10. Yeah, I mean, I think I should actually do the cost of what I'm paying per contribution right now. But I think since everybody does pull requests, including myself, we merged something like 80 pull requests last month. So against our burn, like some quick head math, it's somewhere around $100 per.
Wow. Okay, so it's actually smack on the current value proposition for
basically,
you.
Yeah.
Interesting, but you would get to do it so much faster.
So much faster, and I could just be a PM. Oh, the other thing.
I could just be a PM. Famous last words.
But the other thing is, I was at this Don't Die conference, and I was able to work on my phone. Oh. Because I could just talk to the AI.
Yeah.
Just GitHub app.
Do you want to be working on your phone?
I work from my phone all the time, and it took me...
I mean, during the conference is actually what I mean.
Well, some of the talks, there was a really shitty talk. It was my favorite talk. It was a guy who was building cameras that look into your toilet.
Oh, lovely.
So shitty in the...
Do they call it the shitty talk?
It was a guy who ate ultra-processed food for 30 days and then see what it did to him.
Cool. Yeah, nice.
Anyway.
I was just thinking I might go get a Costco hot dog actually for lunch, so you really mixed that idea. Thank you.
But yeah, it's great working from your phone just because, if it's a choice between Twitter or doing something productive, I just feel better on the inside. It's like eating a healthy food.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. How often do you disconnect and like go off grid?
I don't. But I was thinking I do a little bit of a meditation. I have a little bit of a routine in the morning that gives me like an hour disconnected.
That's good.
So I think that's actually gotten me through. But do you disconnect?
Well, I'll end up going camping or hiking or the likes of that on, no, I'd say maybe a third or a quarter of the weekends. And therefore, like, it's a solid 2 days where, like, there's not really, well, actually, I say there's not really much way around it. I sent my first texts via satellite on my iPhone the other day.
Really? Wow.
Incredible. So thanks, Apple. God damn it. I also accidentally called the texted the emergency services. Like, I locked my phone and put it back, but I've noticed on at least my iPhone 14 Pro, there is significant enough latency between when I press the lock button and when I put it in my pocket. It's about half a second that it will still accept touches on the screen.
Oh,
and so
wow.
I'm sure what happened is I like hit the lock button, stuck it in my pocket, and it like pressed against my leg and pressed the text like contact for me type of thing. So Apple, please fix that. It's really terrible. It does all.
Well, it's a 14. I'm sorry. They just released 16. Speaking of timely news, 16 just came out.
16 just.
But we should go camping sometime. I didn't know you camped. We're trying to become a camping couple. Me and my girlfriend.
Do either of you camp, or you just thought it
Not
looked fun?
really. We're terrible. We're terrible.
Okay.
We get to the campsite at like 4 p.m. and we're like, all right, all we got to do is set up camp. 11 p.m. We finally are eating. Takes me about an hour to start a fire. I'm getting better though.
Are you doing the stick rubbing, or like what's your technique?
No, I get every product imaginable. I will even put on the grill flame starter thing, and it's just I'm bad at it.
Okay. Maybe I'll okay, that sounds fun. I'll teach you how to start a fire sometime. Ideally with just the wood. And
Ideally with just wood.
You can cheat with your camp stove as well. If you've got a jet boil or the likes, just fold the feet in, and like now it's just a blowtorch, and just point it at the fire until the whole thing goes.
It's not riskier than what I'm currently doing. Just spray everywhere.
I'll tell you, mate, it's vastly safer. You're good to go.
I love it.
Seve, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Great to talk to you. Have a good one.
You too.